رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما، أرضى مولاه بما التزما، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات، تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلطا، فعسى من عفو الله عطا، لقلوب الأمة يرعاها. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما، رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما، أرضى مولاه بما التزما، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات، تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلطا، فعسى من عفو الله عطا، لقلوب الأمة يرعاها. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما، رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم، هل من خالق غير الله يرزقكم من السماء والأرض؟ لا إله إلا هو فأنى تؤفكون. لا إله إلا هو فأنى تؤفكون. وإن يكذبوك فقد كذبت رسل من قبلك، وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. يا أيها الناس إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا يغرنكم بالله الغرور. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك والعذى الفقراء بجنابك ووقفت سفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك يرجون الجواز إلى ساحة رحمتك ونعمتك. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم في هذا الشهر الشريف إلا من أخلص لك في صيامه وقيامه، فمن للمذنب المقصر إذا غرق في بحر ذنوبه. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للعاصين، وإن كنت لا تقبل إلا من العاملين فمن للمقصرين. إلهي ربح الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجا المخلصون، ونحن عبيدك المذنبون، فارحمنا برحمتك وأعتقنا من النار بعفوك، واغفر لنا ذنوبنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقما، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يداه، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه، ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أرى مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك أن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعية إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكثر به قلتنا وأعزز به ذلتنا وأغني به عائلنا واقضي به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فتقنا وسد به خلتنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيض به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وأعطنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا. يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين اشفي به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبضر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فأدخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت، بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمرنا في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقنا، وتجعلنا ممن ننتصر به لدينك، ولا تستبدل بنا غيرنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
أرضى مولاه بما التزما، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات.
آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمكنه فيها طويلا، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. لتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، شفاء لمرضانا، قبولا لأعمالنا، لكي يقبل دعاءنا في هذه الليلة إلى أرواح أمواتنا، موت الحاضرين، موت المؤمنين والمؤمنات. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة مسبوقة بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
رمضان مجال الصلوات تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلطا، فعسى من عفو الله عطا لقلوب الأمة يرعاها. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. أرضى مولاه بما التزما، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلطا، فعسى من عفو الله عطا لقلوب الأمة يرعاها. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. أرضى مولاه بما التزما، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلطا، فعسى من عفو الله عطا لقلوب الأمة يرعاها. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. أرضى مولاه بما التزما، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلطا، فعسى من عفو الله عطا لقلوب الأمة يرعاها. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. رمضان تجلى وابتسم، طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما. أرضى مولاه بما التزما. طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات. تسمو بالنفس لمولاها. رمضان يكفر ما فرطا من خطأ الناس وما اختلف.
الله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع. هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار. يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع. إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار. من عمل سيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثلها ومن عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فأولئك يدخلون الجنة يرزقون فيها بغير حساب. ويا قوم ما لي أدعوكم إلى النجاة وتدعونني إلى النار. تدعونني لأكفر بالله وأشرك به ما ليس لي به علم وأنا أدعوكم إلى العزيز الغفار. لا جرم أن ما تدعونني إليه ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ولا في الآخرة وأن ردنا إلى الله وأن مردنا إلى الله وأن المسرفين هم أصحاب النار فستذكرون ما أقول لكم وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد فوقاه الله سيئات ما مكروا وحاق بآل فرعون سوء العذاب النار يعرضون عليها غدوا وعشيا ويوم تقوم الساعة أدخلوا آل فرعون أشد العذاب وإذ يتحاجون في النار فيقول الضعفاء للذين استكبروا إنا كنا لكم تبعا فهل أنتم مغنون عنا نصيبا من النار قال الذين استكبروا إنا كل فيها قال الذين استكبروا إنا كل فيها إنا كل فيها إن الله قد حكم بين العباد صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
If we can give Brother Ibrahim Ajami another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. The Arabic program is happening inside the hall for those that would love to attend. On behalf of you and I, would love to thank you guys for showing up every single day. It is truly sad that the blessed holy month of Ramadan is almost coming to a close with one day left. I personally want to wish that it was a blessed month for you guys. Without further ado, we'd love to welcome our dearest brother, Sheikh Ahmed Shirri, to give his lecture by 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
فعسى من عفو الله عطاء لقلوب الأمة يرعاها رمضان تجلى وابتسم طوبى للعبد إذا اغتنما رمضان
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. I begin in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon His final messenger Muhammad and His blessed and purified progeny. Assalamu alaikum. Dear brothers, dear sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, as we mentioned yesterday, I'd like to continue going over the speech of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, in which he describes the pious individuals and the qualities that they have, right? Because we said that we first began by talking about the love of God, and then we talked about piety and the importance of piety and how it's a two-way street and so on. And we began going over the qualities of those individuals. Why? Because we have to have some image, something to strive for. Now, something I didn't mention about this narration is the person that asked this question. He ended up dying after hearing the explanation. As a result of hearing it, he died. Perhaps it was the intensity of the information. Perhaps it was of the excitement or of the shock. But the Imam says that it was his time to go anyways. But he was a good man. He was known as a worshiper. Nonetheless, when we have something to strive for, we have to be able to picture it, right? We want to know something to compare myself to. Now, who are we supposed to compare ourselves to? According to the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we want to know that we're on truth, we're supposed to compare ourselves to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, right? He says the truth is with Ali. Ali is the mizan. He's the scale. Whether we are, the more like Ali that we are, the more we know we're on the right path. Nonetheless, these are qualities that without a doubt Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi embodies, and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam embodies, and the mu'mineen and the pious one, the muttaqeen, have these qualities. So continuing from where we left off in the speech, in the explanation, begins Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam saying, and they lower their gaze to that which God has made forbidden. That the person who has piety, the pious individual, the muttaqeen, lower their gaze to that which God has made forbidden. They view the eye as a blessing as well. Yesterday we mentioned that what is a blessing? We said language. Language is a blessing, right? This ability to express ourselves. So we have to be careful on social media. What we write, what we say. Just because it's virtual doesn't mean it's less harmful. But our mind processes that way. Processes it that way. That's why we fall for that trap. We don't feel the consequence. We don't feel the danger. It's like that with the eye as well. Right? The eye is a blessing. Now this blessing and this gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be used as well, like language, in a permissible way and an impermissible way. But unfortunately, before you'd say, well, it was very difficult maybe to use the eye in an impermissible way. It wasn't as accessible. I mentioned yesterday as well the example that most people, when they would see their kids or somebody out on the street, they would tell them, go back to your home, as if the home was a safe haven and a refuge. Now, we can't trust ourselves alone. Now the advice that we give to brothers and to sisters is keep around good company. Don't be on your own. Why? Because even on your own, There's a danger. You have your phone around you, you have your laptop around you, you have the TV around you. Culture and the development of things within the industry and cinema and the ease of access and all these subscriptions have made things a lot more difficult as well. I get, I remember, I think it was around 3-4 years ago. There were like posts being made online by individuals. Oh, I'm watching this show, I'm watching that show, the new season of this came up. And it's like any random individual that knows anything about what's happening in the media world and what shows are like, knows that show is filthy, disgusting, Say, yeah, well, I skipped the bad parts. All right, but at the end of the day, this is what you're supporting, this is what you're watching, Even if you're skipping it, would you imagine that a pious individual goes and takes part in that? And they lower their gaze to that which God has made forbidden, right? So we might not be lowering our gaze, we might be lowering our gaze in the public view, but it's in private. It's about what I'm watching on TV, it's about the series that I'm watching. It's not worth it. It's not worth taking sin lightly. And then we realize that we don't have a grasp over ourselves, right? We take other sins seriously, but we take that sin lightly. It says, no, you can't get piety. You can't become pious that way. The one who is looking to reach what you want to reach, you can't reach it that way. You can't mix haram and halal in one heart. You can't. God and the devil in one heart. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to be extra careful. You have to be extra careful. But now we've begun to take it easy. Whatever we want to watch. People recommend a comedy show. People recommend a series. Right? And you begin to take those sins lightly. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And it's something that causes a disease within the heart. It's something that, taking sin lightly means you're taking who lightly? You're taking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lightly. Right? You're saying, well, I'm skipping it. I'm muting it, right, when the time comes. But it's that 1 second that you heard it. Was it worth it to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that minute, in that second? Was it worth losing everything that you built over what? It's easier to break than it is to build, brothers and sisters. See, the biggest skyscrapers in the world can take months to build. You can have a building that takes years to build, but it can be taken down in a few minutes and in a few seconds. Are those seconds worth it? The pious say, no, it's not. It's not worth losing, because what am I losing? I'm losing out with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that piety means we're extra careful with the blessings that we've been given. With language, if we have nothing good to say, we remain silent. And with our eyes, if there is nothing good to see, then we lower our gaze. And we don't play with the fire. We don't take risks that we're not supposed to take. We don't support industries that we're not supposed to be supporting. Give views to things that we're not supposed to be giving views to. I wish it was just shows and TV, It's other things. Influencers that are doing things and behaving in a certain way that we're giving support to with our hands, with our eyes, with our ears. And they direct their ears towards beneficial knowledge. Meaning, they ask themselves this question. There's two questions you can ask yourself when it comes to knowledge. You can ask yourself, is this knowledge something that is good or something that is bad? Right? If it's bad, I'll stay away from it. If it's good, I'll get near it. Or can I ask if it's bad? If it's not harmful, then it's just idle talk, then I'll take part. Right? But the pious one asks another question. They say, is this knowledge beneficial or not? Does it benefit me or not? That's the question they ask. See, most people don't ask that question. They say, okay, talama is allowed, it's halal, it's good fun, all in good fun, no problem. The pious individual perseveres, understands that life is short, nothing is worth it. They love knowledge, they seek knowledge. And so even when they're hearing that blessing that they've been given in their ears, they direct them towards that which is beneficial. If there's no benefit in it, then what's the point in talking about it? Let's benefit each other. We're all here in this world. We're going on this journey together. We're travelers within this world together. Let's benefit from one another. So they ask themselves, is that gathering beneficial or not? Am I a better person after or not? Is that conversation worth it or not? Watching that show worth it or not? Sometimes it's not all, I'm not saying that you have to dedicate your time to reading books and doing all these things. Sometimes giving yourself a break, a nice outlet, for all the energy and all the stress, you've had a hard day, but you can do it in a beneficial way, something that's beneficial. Better than putting yourself in a situation that there's risk of falling into gossip, or risk of falling into haram, or risk that you're wasting your time, or you're having bad influences around within your life. There's no point. So it's not bad for a person to take a break, but the pious one asks themselves this question whenever they're faced with a decision: is it beneficial for me or not? Some people, they take, different kinds of junk, different kinds of candy, different types of, drinks and so on. They like to enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Except that it's like a poison, right? Basically, what you're drinking is full of chemicals and it's not beneficial for you. Now, taking it in and of itself isn't going to harm you big time in the long run. But there is minor harm in it. The question is it beneficial for you? Is it worth it to take that in? The conversations that I'm having, the people that I'm listening to, the podcasts, these influencers, these self-help individuals online, sometimes there is benefit. I know people who, they were in dark places and they say, well, I listened to this person on YouTube and they helped me get clarity. They helped me see. A young man is trying to find his identity and he listens to another man online and he feels like he's now been empowered. He's found his identity. He knows what he has to do. He was demotivated and now he got motivation. He feels reborn, right? But a lot of times it's not beneficial. A lot of times the person you're listening to doesn't have the right criteria to lead. They're not morally upright individuals, right? They're not morally upright individuals. What makes them an authority on telling the individual how to lead their lives? Psychology is important. Psychology is beneficial. We talked about in the Q&A, I think last night or the night before, how mental health and seeking help for one's issues is important. And I'm very supportive of our fellow doctors within the community and abroad. My best friends that I grew up with are doctors. We respect that. We respect psychologists. We respect psychiatrists. But we say it's not fully complete. What completes it? Religion. Why? Because the psychologist can only observe things on a material level. As far as the psychologist is concerned, you are your body. You are your body. You are your thoughts. We're here to tell you, religion is here to tell you, Islam is here to tell you that you are not your body, you are not your thoughts. You have a soul that you have to nurture. And that soul has a certain potential. And you have to work in order for that soul to realize its potential. And that you're better than an animal. Well, the scientists come and tell you, they compare you to the animal. They say you behave this way because the animal behaves this way in the wild. Sometimes they get it right because the individual lowers themselves to an animalistic state. And so they do begin to behave in an animal-like way. But they neglect the soul. Sometimes the soul needs nurturing. The soul needs feeding. The soul is facing a problem that is manifesting itself in physical illnesses, manifesting itself in a physical manifestation. Because the soul is sick. The soul is diseased. And so going to these individuals just because they understand human beings from one aspect, it doesn't mean they have the authority to tell you how to lead your lives. But the fact that you're going to them is an admission by yourself that you do need guidance, you do need to be led, you do need help. So you have that humility. You found it, you're just putting your trust in the wrong places. Now, why do people not go to religion first? Because of the perspective of religious individuals. They see the religious person, shahar, ma'attar, he's upset, angry, sad, ill-tempered, and then they say like, okay, well, they haven't figured it out, so how are they going to help me out? these religious individuals. That's a problem. Well, first you're attributing the attributes of those who claim to be religious to the religion. Right? The religion is saying, come, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, come yourself. I don't need other individuals. You yourself, you've had an experience with me. You have a relationship with me. Doesn't matter how your surroundings were, your upbringing was, your friends are, those at the mosque. I met a religious person and they did this, and I was in Islamic school. All these things, they don't matter. What matters is that you, deep down in your conscience, you know you've experienced, you have a relationship with me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you. Am I like those individuals that you saw? Did I judge you the way they judged you? Did I hurt you the way they hurt you? And you deep down inside know that's not the case. You know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved you on multiple occasions, regardless of how you behaved. There was always hope. When you had no hope in yourself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had no hope in you. When everybody abandoned you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was there for you. You know that. But the problem is we are forgetful individuals. Yani when we become religious, we forget what it was like when maybe we're not so much religious. And so now that we became religious, we want to move away from others. And we begin to become the very people that we used to criticize. Why? Because arrogance comes into play. Remember that one of the sifat, one of the attributes of the pious is that their walk is the walk of humility. Meaning when we become religious, we're supposed to be more open individuals. Open to helping others, to speaking with others, being kind to others. We lead with our character. That's how we lead. And we don't seek leadership. We only seek God. And we understand that God is the guide. And if I have humility and if I have a good character, it's not because I am good. It's because God is good. It's because God is watching me. Because I know that He is observing me and observing my behavior. And so we have to keep that in mind, that there are other people out there observing us, seeing us. Right? A lot of times people ask, how can I help somebody, a friend of mine that's suffering and so on? You have no idea how they're observing you. They're watching you. They don't have to verbally say it. They don't have to verbally say it. They don't have to tell you that they look up to you. They don't have to tell you that they are watching to see whether it works out for you or not. Because that's what human beings do. Right? When they see success, they try to replicate it. Somebody goes on a hamle, says the person, the hamle did a good job, it was easy. They come back, they make a hamle themselves straight away. There's some people, they don't even wait a week. And they just got back. Other people, they see a certain business idea worked, everybody goes and jumps on the bandwagon, right? Drop shipping, small business, let me open an Instagram, let me start, doing this, doing that. Well, look how much they made. They see success, they try to replicate it. Did they communicate with that individual? Did they tell that individual that, hey, I'm watching you to see whether you make it or not? No, they don't. But they see it, they're observing. Other people, your siblings, those around you, in your community, at school, at work, your teachers. I know a student who was able to influence his teacher so much that the teacher 2 years later converted and then said it was because of you that I converted. It's because you were a principled person in your life. I never saw a young man not interested in the things that you were different. Not interested in the things that all the other kids were interested in. So people are observing you, and God, most importantly, is observing you, but those in your surroundings are. And so as a pious individual, you're supposed to what? The pious person is what? Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam says, their hearts are broken, but they're always smiling. Right? They don't let it become outward. They don't let it manifest. Even though they're in pain. They smile while their heart is bleeding. That's the term used by Imam Ali alayhi salam. They smile while their heart is bleeding. Because they don't want that pain inside to harm others. We'll see why in the rest of the narration. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As their inner selves were tested in adversity just as they were tested in prosperity. Meaning that when they were in adversity and when they were happy, Both when they were going through problems and when they were happy. It didn't change anything about their certainty and their relationship with God. A lot of people, when they do a lot of dua and they start praying a lot and, and then suddenly problems start to come and their faith is put to the test. Eventually they're like, where's God? What happened to all these prayers? What happened? I'm doing everything right. Why is it not working out? That's the answer to your question. You're doing it so that things could work out for you. You're not worshiping because God is worthy of being worshipped. You're worshiping for a reason. You want things to work out for you. God says, okay, approach me anyways. Even if you have the intention, come to me. Doesn't matter. But you see, there's the problem. You've already identified it. The problem is, it's not sincere. The problem is you're praying, but praying with expectations. The expectation is you always have hope in God. That's okay. But I'm saying that is the goal of your prayer. That is the goal of your prayer. I remember once when I was in the seminary, I had a very good teacher over there, and he was a big influence on me when I was there. And when I moved out of the dorms into another dorm, I used to get a certain, feeling when I would pray, and it was beautiful. And I wasn't able to preserve that state. And it was taken away from me. Long story short, my prayer became different. And I went to my teacher and I told him, honestly, I don't feel like praying anymore because that prayer is nothing compared to that other prayer that I was praying. That prayer, that was a special one, It felt different. It felt like God was paying attention to me. It felt like it was a real prayer. And he looked to me and he said, then this is your test. Your test is to see whether you were praying for the sake of that feeling or you were praying for the sake of God. Because God is. Because God is worthy of being worshipped. So what are you praying for? You're praying so you can get a feeling, a spiritual state. You're not really worshiping God, were you? Right? That's the problem. This is a test. Okay, if I give you a feeling, will you continue? You'll do more. If I take it away from you, what will you do? Will you still continue to worship me? It says the inner selves were tested in adversity, just as they were tested in prosperity. And what? They passed the test. They're still the same. They are still the same. That's why Ammar, again, in the battlefield, what does he say? His famous speech. He says, oh Allah, if you grant us victory, then all victory is from you. And if we do not, if you let our enemies be victorious, then you are the most just. He doesn't say, oh Allah, if you grant us victory, then you are the greatest. And if you don't grant us victory, then you are unjust, or that's not fair. How could you do this to me? You promised to give victory to the mu'mineen. He doesn't say that, doesn't react in that way, but a lot of people do. When they're pushed, when there are trials and tribulations, say, why God? Why did you do this to me? Why? What have I done? What's the problem? Your certainty begins, is God even listening to me? Is God listening to me? Does He even exist? People go to that extent that as soon as they get pushed a little bit, they begin to doubt God's existence. Deep down, they know He exists. Deep down, they know. But they're so angry and they're so frustrated at the trial that they doubt the existence of God. Instead of going to God as a source of peace and a source of comfort and talking to God about your problems. Instead, you're shouting at God, accusing God. So the pious are the ones who remain in that state. They seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in comfort and in trial and tribulation. They speak to God when they're comfortable, and they speak to God the same way when they're uncomfortable. Most people speak when they're uncomfortable. But God says, speak to me when you're comfortable. Remember me in your comfort. And I will remember you when you are uncomfortable. I will take care of you. But you have to have that connection. Speak to me when you're uncomfortable. The Creator is so great in their essence that everything else seems small in their eyes. Their concern is God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked a bit about this yesterday, that God is magnified in their heart. The attributes of God how is God magnified? The things that they're striving for, goodness, success, beauty, all that, they know it belongs to God. So they're no longer influenced by external means. And by the way, this is the reason why there's heartbreak and disappointment in the world. The moment you look outside of your heart, which is the home of God, right? Described in the narrations as the home of God is the heart. The moment you look outside of your heart, the moment you look for other than God, you will only find disappointment. Only find disappointment. And your heart will break again and again and again until you find the one who has the antidote for that heart and the human soul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell you, enough with the betrayal, come back to me. Enough with the mistakes, come back to me. Wake up, realize that nobody cares about you as much as I do. That beauty that you're looking for, I am the source. You find somebody who's beautiful in character, in the way that they look, in appearance. He said, that beauty is mine. It belongs to me. I gave it to them. That's what you were attracted to. Even what you're looking for. Many times I tell the brothers and sisters that what you were attracted to was an idea. The idea of an individual, your imagination. You saw the beauty and you amplified it. You saw something nice and you amplified it. The good, you amplified it in your mind. The moment you get the reality, you realize what? It's disappointing. That's not what I thought it would be. I wasn't under this I didn't have these expectations. And then you become disappointed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I was that thing that you were attracted to. That was me. You were looking for me. But in order to redirect you, you need to break your heart. Why? Because until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot enter the home. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, oh David, purify your home for me. So, oh God, how can I purify my home? He says, light a fire within it that burns everything that distracts you from me. Everything other than me. Light a fire within your heart. Fire of passion, light it within your heart. Burns everything other than me. The heart, where does God say? Your home. The heart is the home of God. The heart is also described in the narration as the Kaaba. Meaning these idols that you put for yourselves in this Kaaba, these attachments, these individuals, break them if you want God to come into your heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not enter a heart in which idols are there. Right? Because when we want to love God and achieve God's love, it's not done theoretically. Love isn't in words. Love isn't in writing. It's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's a connection. It's not something that can be brought about through thinking a lot. I think a lot and no, they say contemplate God's attributes and you'll realize His blessings, His gifts. Right? But to have God's love and to have God in your life, you have to break the idols. You have to first purify your heart in order to receive. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam continues, they in paradise are like those who have seen it. And they are enjoying themselves within it. And he continues, although I don't have it translated there, that they also view hell in the same way. That they in paradise are like those who have seen it, and they view hell and sinning like those who are in it. Meaning that those who are pious understand that the promise of God is true. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran makes many promises. He says, call upon me, I will answer you. Right? That if you stand by my side, I will give you victory. Right? Alongside many other. Those who have taqwa, I will grant them ease. Verily, with hardship comes ease. A lot of statements within the Quran. Those who have piety understand that God's promise is true. Like Ammar's mother. Ammar, one of the first companions, right, of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ammar, what did they do? He was one of the first Muslims. They went, they took his mom, they took his dad, put them in chains. They burnt down his house. They took him and whipped him and his parents under the heat of the sun in public in Mecca to make an example out of him. And they made one request, curse Muhammad and praise the idols. And they refused. The first who refused and the strongest one was Sumayyah, his mother. The first martyr in Islam was a woman. Sumayyah, the mother of Ammar. They tried to pressure her to curse the Prophet. reject the Prophet and praise the idols. And she would not. And then the Holy Messenger ﷺ was observing her, and this was at a time when what? They were stabbing her with spears, they whipped her, they took a stone and put it on her chest in order for her bones to slowly break, put her through immense amounts of torture. And the Prophet sees this and he tells her 3 times, you have been promised paradise. You have been promised paradise. You have been promised paradise. And then when she opens her eyes, the enemy is in front of her and he tells her, are you ready to curse Muhammad and to praise the idols? She told him in response, damn you and damn your idols. And at that point he got so mad he kicked her in her stomach and she fell into a coma. And she said, I testify that there is, when she got up again, she said, I testify that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger and that his promise is true. Because he promised her what? Paradise. It was as if she could see the paradise. She understood where she was going. Would she have been allowed to step down from her principles? Yes, she would have, but she would not have attained what she was promised. Not at that moment, not at that time. She was an example, the first person to die for Islam. And then from the amount of torture and abuse, shortly thereafter, she passed away and became the first martyr. This is Ammar's mother. These are the first Muslims. These are the troubles they had to go through. They still hadn't formed nothing. They were just a small group going from home to home. But these are what these dictators are like. Nevertheless, all she needed was that reassurance from the Prophet, that promise of paradise, and she was willing to sacrifice her life. It says, their hearts are filled with sorrow. How is a pious person's heart filled with sorrow? This sorrow is a hidden grief. It's not a present grief. You don't see them as sad individuals. It's not like you go to the, psychiatrist and that's where all the pious people are. They're all sad and they're standing in line. No, the pious individuals are happy individuals. You can't tell that they're sad. Their grief is hidden. What are they sad about? They're sad because they're sad at the thought that they won't be able to reach the shore of salvation. They won't be able to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hafiz the poet, what does he say? I always ask this question. In multiple lectures I've asked this question. Hafiz has a poem in which he says something along the lines of, oh beloved, you still remember who I am, the one who wears the dust of your door like a crown. The dust of your door like a crown. I asked people, why did Hafiz say the dust of your door? He says, oh God, you still remember who I am, the one who wears the dust of your door like a crown. The dust is because Hafiz is still waiting at the door. The door hasn't been opened. It's been closed for so long that dust has collected under the door. They say it took Hafiz 40 years to reach perfection, right? That's what this said historically. It said, for 40 years I've been waiting at your door and I haven't left. And on top of that, you remember me. How? Because you didn't kick me out. Every once in a while, a breeze, I can smell your scent and your perfume from under that door. That for me is enough. That I'm standing at your door. You know that I am your lover. I have not left this door. The grief is from the door being closed. That they potentially say, I am far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm detached from God. I'm far away from God. That's where their grief comes from. Will I ever be able to make it? Right? I won't be able to continue my journey. The devil, every once in a while, he comes and I get despair. I get sad because I keep slipping up. In the Quran, it is mentioned that the shaitan said, I will surely mislead them all, except for your pure servants. Their heart is filled with sorrow because they haven't achieved perfect servanthood. What do we mean by that? Here the shaitan is admitting, he's saying, I will surely mislead them all, except for who? Your pure servants. Who are these pure servants? These pure servants are the individuals who are dedicated their very being to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rumi, what does Rumi say? He says, I know everything that I give in life comes back to me. This life is cyclical. You give good, you get good. You be bad, you get bad. He says, so I give you myself, hoping that you will come back to me. I give you my life, hoping that you will come back to me. Talking to God, I dedicate everything to me. I've lost you. Where are you? I cannot see you. He said, I know that at the very least, I know nothing of this world or its secrets or the universe. I know that there is one rule, that whatever I give comes back to me. So let me follow that one rule that I know and give myself and hope that I get you in return. Sacrifice myself for you. Some people are 50% servants of God. 50%, shaitan has a way to them, right? They only worship God 50%. They dedicate themselves 50% of the time to God, right? They're still away. Some are 70%. They give 70% of their lives to God. That 30% is where the shaitan creeps in. The shaitan cannot affect the pure one because like the individual loses hope and despairs at tragedy, the shaitan loses hope and despairs at trying to influence that individual. No matter what I'm doing, it doesn't work. No matter what I'm doing. That's why in the narrations it's mentioned that the shaitan gets frustrated. I ask them to sin. They sin and then they say astaghfirullah afterwards. They sin and then they go do ghusl and they go into sujood afterwards. And they testify and God forgives them. No matter how many sins they commit, they're always returning to God. I give up eventually. I'm never going to be able to influence that individual. And then there are individuals, like in the book by Shahid Dasghaib, called Al-Isti'ada, seeking refuge from Allah, in Allah from the shaitan. In the book, Shahid Dasghaib mentions about a scholar who was writing a book, and I'll probably end with this story. He mentions that a scholar was writing a book about the shaitan, and then another scholar sees the shaitan in his dream. And he says, the shaitan tells that scholar, I am the one who influenced that well-known scholar to write that book about me. Said, one, it'll make that individuals more aware about me. Two, that individual, all his deeds will be burnt away with that one act. Said, how? Because that scholar was writing a book on how to defeat the shaitan, all the tactics, what one can do. Said, how? He said, his arrogance will be his downfall. He's going to be so proud of himself that he wrote that book. He'll begin to attribute all the success to himself and he'll forget God. His arrogance will be his downfall. So the individual wakes up, he goes to the shaykh, and he goes and he tells him that I saw this in a dream. Or this was another matter. Well, another story from that book, nevertheless. An individual sees the shaitan in the dream. And this is here the moral of the story. He sees the shaitan and he talks to him. He says he has a rope in his hand. He said, what is that rope? What are those chains in your hands? He says, these ropes and these chains are for me to wrap around the individual and pull them in. Right? But some, I need chains. Some, I need armies. Some, I need multiple devils in order to pull him in. He says, the other day, I caught Ayatullah, this person, right? And I managed to pull him in a little. And then he let go. He said, no, really? He said, yeah, I did. You can ask him yourself. He told the shaitan, how do you influence me? He said, Ayatullah, I needed armies, I needed a chain. You, all I have to do is whistle and you perform the deed itself. Don't need armies, don't need chains. You've already trained yourself in that way. No need. People ask during Shahr Ramadan, how do we commit those deeds that we commit? There's no, the shayateen are chained. If we forgot the evil within ourselves that we haven't dealt with. So the man wakes up and he goes to that scholar and they asked him, I saw the shaitan in the dream, and he said so and so. The scholar says that was true. It's the Ayatullah. He said, I was financially in a tight spot and there was khums money that was there. I knew that I was going to get the equal amount, equivalent to that money that was given to me as a trust in 2 days. So if I spent from it, I was going to replace it in 2 days. And then I felt under a lot of pressure, and I needed, the money, and I have a family and a wife and kids. He said, I took that money and said, I'll go buy just enough rice or enough bread or what I need from the store. He said, as soon as I put my foot outside the house, I remembered the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I remembered that this was a plot from the shaitan, that I had just slipped up and that what I'm doing isn't worth it. He said, immediately I put my foot back in the house, I went back and I put the money back. I recognized it. Perhaps it was the barakah of the ad'iyah. There are ad'iyah that you recite when you leave your house and you go back home. That keep one in a state of remembrance. It's that one moment that he slipped up. But as soon as he realized, he returned. The shaitan despairs from an individual. That's the individual. That's how you reach the shore of salvation. That's how you gain the asma. The same way we despair and we get tired. We say, I'm tired of this. Shaitan says, I'm tired of him. I'm tired of her. No matter what I do, no matter what I try, they keep trying to get better. They keep returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't lose hope in God. They understand that God will always forgive them time and time again. That He's more forgiving than their mothers and more understanding than their fathers. I try to trick them time and time again. I send them human influences to tell them that God is not there, and I send them shows and series to tell them that there is no hope and that there is darkness and that this is the way of the world. Yet they still have hope. They still believe. They still are moved. That's the individual that the shaitan gets despaired from. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people of piety, people who never lose hope in Allah